Welcome to Weekly News Highlights, where we wrap up your week with a glimpse back into what went on over the past week. I'm Kim Dami in Seoul. This week, Egypt opened the Rafah border crossing for the first time since the Israel-Hamas conflict erupted. Hundreds of foreign nationals, including South Korean nationals, crossed the border. On Tuesday, President Yoon Suk Yeol delivered his 2024 budget speech, where he once again underlined fiscal soundness and sought support for next year's budget proposal at Parliament. It's been 1 year since the crowd crush in Itaewon that killed 159 people on Halloween weekend. This year's Halloween passed with no major events. In fact, the government is doing its best to keep the country safe and sound during this year-end season. For the first time since the war between Israel and Hamas broke out, the Rafah border crossing opened to allow foreign nationals out of the Gaza Strip. South Korean nationals were among the hundreds of foreigners who made it out of the area. And Egyptian authorities say they'll be allowing 7,000 more people through. Our 신세벽 has more.
On the second day of the Rafah crossing reopening on Thursday, 344 foreign nationals and dual citizens, as well as dozens of severely injured Palestinians, passed through the Egypt-Gaza border. The Rafah crossing is the only Gaza border crossing that isn't under Israeli control and is a crucial gateway for humanitarian support.
So we finally got the chance to almost leave Gaza. This is my 5th attempt to leave.
Thursday's crossings followed the at least 361 foreign nationals and 76 injured Palestinians who were able to cross into Egypt on Wednesday. The Egyptian government said it plans to help evacuate around 7,000 foreigners and dual nationals from the Gaza Strip without providing a specific timeline. Among those crossing the border on Thursday were a South Korean family. According to Seoul's foreign ministry, the family of 5, who were the only South Koreans living in the Gaza Strip, were safely evacuated to Egypt on Thursday.
I have a Korean nationality and we live in Gaza. Thank God, today we left Gaza to Egypt. Thankfully, we left behind the war, this situation, but our family and relatives are still in Gaza.
The ministry said the family arrived in Egypt at around 11:15 a.m. local time and they are being provided with consular assistance, including accommodation and medical checkups. Meanwhile, a Japanese aircraft bringing 15 South Koreans and 1 foreign national family member departed Tel Aviv for Tokyo on Thursday along with Japanese nationals. It is the second flight Japan is providing to South Korea, following the offering of 20 seats last month. This is seen as returning the favor after Seoul brought back some 50 Japanese nationals along with South Koreans from Israel on October 14. With this, there are 420 South Korean citizens remaining in Israel. 신세벽, 아리랑뉴스.
وعلمنا علامات زي هيك عشان لو صار سمح الله، لأن شفت الناس مقطع واشلاء، يعني ما تقدرش تعرف هذا من هذا، مين هذا من هذا. لو سمح الله تقطع وأعرفهم إنهم إيش، ألمهم لحم وشغلات زي هيك، أعرفهم من العلامات هذه.
حطينا هذه العلامة، مثلا إحنا مثلا استشهدنا، أمي تعرفنا، وإذا مثلا إخواتي استشهدوا غادة بابا يعرف إنه إخواتي وأمي.
Reportedly now more than 3,450 children have been killed. Staggeringly, this number rises significantly every single day. Gaza has become a graveyard for children. It's a living hell for everyone else.
South Korea's military official said on Thursday that North Korea shipped some 2,000 containers of weapons to Russia for use against Ukraine. In addition to hundreds of thousands of artillery rounds, there are also signs that Pyongyang might have also provided Moscow with short-range ballistic missiles. Our defense correspondent Choi Min-jung reports.
South Korea has also accused North Korea of shipping military equipment to Russia, following similar accusations recently made by the U.S. and Ukraine. A military official on Thursday said that it estimates a total of 2,000 containers have been shipped to Russia from North Korea's port city of Najin, close to the border with Russia. The official explained that the containers are capable of loading more than 200,000 rounds of 122mm artillery shells and over 1 million rounds of 152mm shells. Apart from rocket launchers, shells, and artillery, the military also noted that there are indications of the transfer of short-range ballistic missiles. The official also noted that there have been indications of the North's supply of weapons to Russia even before Kim Jong-un visited Russia in September, as their arms trade via sea has picked up pace since August. The military anticipates that in return for weapons, North Korea will likely gain Russia's assistance in satellite technology, potentially to prepare for its third attempt at launching a spy satellite. The North may also receive necessities like food and fuel to get through the upcoming winter. The two sides are also anticipated to discuss potential joint military exercises in the future. South Korea is calling for the immediate halt of the arms transfer, saying it is a clear violation of UN Security Council resolutions and seriously threatens the peace and stability of the Korean Peninsula and the world. Choi Min-jung, 아리랑뉴스.
The month of October went by without an anticipated third military satellite launch attempt by North Korea. Now, the regime pledged to make it happen within October after the second attempt back in August failed due to a malfunction with the rocket's third stage. The North claimed that was not a big issue, but experts say the pressure to make the third trial a success is so enormous that the North is concentrating on making it work, even at the expense of missing its own deadline. There are also speculations that the North's collaboration with Russia may be the reason for the delay, after Russian leader Vladimir Putin promised the Kremlin support and sharing of space technology. The time is up for the North, but Seoul's intel agency believes that the North is in the final stage of preparations for that third attempt, including inspections on engine and launch devices. It also added that there is a higher chance that the third launch will be successful due to Russia's help.
North Korea appears to have received technical assistance from Russia, and there's a higher chance that the third launch will be successful, but it still lacks technology and funds.
And on Wednesday, South Korean Ambassador Jo Yeon-dong told reporters that he would step up efforts to deter Pyongyang's breach of UN Security Council resolutions, as launching a military reconnaissance satellite requires the use of ballistic missile technology, which is banned under UN Security Council resolutions. South Korea's military says it is hard to predict when the third attempt will come, but it is widely believed that the North is aiming to make it happen within this year, as that is one of the regime's key goals to boosting military power. In the meantime, North Korea is also shutting down its overseas diplomatic missions. A diplomatic document released by the Communist Party of Peoples of Spain on Wednesday showed Pyongyang's announcement that it is closing its embassy in Spain and that its embassy in Italy will be in charge of matters involving Spain from now on. Now, the reason for the closure was not immediately known, but the South Korean government has noted it's a sign that the regime is struggling to make money overseas because of global sanctions. The North's latest move came just days after it closed a number of embassies in Africa, including those in Uganda and Angola. South Korea and the U.S. are among 40 countries planning to sign a pledge never to pay ransoms to cyber criminals. The decision comes as the UN says North Korea is illegally using money acquired from cybercrime to fund its weapons programs. The movement comes as the head of the FBI also warned of the risks of cyber attacks against the U.S. Our Kim Jung-sil reports.
40 countries, including South Korea and the U.S., plan to sign a pledge never to pay ransoms to cybercriminals. They're part of a U.S.-led alliance that will also work toward eliminating the hackers' funding mechanisms. The White House announced a plan on Tuesday local time. The International Counter-Ransomware Initiative, a two-day event ending on November 1st, includes representatives from 48 countries, the EU, and Interpol. This is the third annual event that is being hosted by the U.S., which, according to the White House, is the country that has been hit hardest by cybercrime. It aims to eradicate the criminals' funding by sharing information, including the ransom payment accounts. The initiative comes as FBI Director Christopher Wray emphasized the risks of cyber attacks at Tuesday's U.S. Senate Committee on Homeland Security and Government Affairs. Wray said in the last few years, countries like China, North Korea, and Russia, quote, use cyber operations to target U.S. research. He also said cyber attacks by China, Russia, and Iran are becoming more aggressive and more capable than ever before. The FBI director said he's most worried that these adversaries focus on, quote, compromising U.S. critical infrastructure, especially during a crisis. In ransomware attacks, hackers hack into an organization's systems to steal information or encrypt data and demand ransom in exchange for unlocking it. 김정실, 아리랑뉴스.
In a widely expected move, the Federal Reserve this week decided to keep its key interest rate for the second straight time. Now, the decision is not only limited to the U.S. as it also affects South Korea. Our economic correspondent An Sung-jin is here in the studio to walk us through the implications of the Fed's latest key rate decision. Welcome, Sung-jin.
It's a pleasure to be here, Dami.
All right, Sung-jin, we have much to cover. So what is this Fed's decision all about this week?
Right, Dami. Let's walk through this by beginning with what the Fed's benchmark rates are. The U.S. Federal Reserve has decided to maintain interest rates in the 5.25 to 5.5% range. Now, Wednesday's meeting was the second consecutive meeting after September where the FOMC held rates steady at a 22-year high. This decision is mostly attributed to a slowdown in inflation as the Consumer Price Index recorded an on-year decrease, while the U.S. economy has been growing at a constant pace over the past few months, potentially increasing the growth rate to the 2% range. An increase in government bond rates also reduced the need for additional interest rate hikes by the Fed as borrowing costs for households and businesses rose. Let's take a look at what the Federal Reserve Chairman had to say.
Recent indicators suggest that economic activity has been expanding at a strong pace and well above earlier expectations.
So the rate pause comes as inflation cooled since last summer. That's when prices peaked at a high unseen in 4 decades, which is why the U.S. saw a period of interest rate hikes, right?
Exactly. There were 4 in 2023 as the committee tried to tame the high inflation. The Fed's second rate pause follows a series of rate hikes over the previous year and a half, yet inflation is still lingering above the Fed's target of 2% per year, with Fed Chair Jerome Powell hinting that future hikes may be needed.
A few months of good data are only the beginning of what it will take to build confidence that inflation is moving down sustainably toward our goal. The process of getting inflation sustainably down to 2% has a long way to go. We'll be looking at all those things as we make a decision in December. We haven't made that decision.
Right, Sung-jin, but still, the Fed's key rate decision on Wednesday doesn't change the gate wrap between South Korea and the U.S., right?
Since the interest rate remains the same for the U.S., it won't change the gap. However, the rate difference is sparking concerns over the South Korean won-U.S. dollar exchange rate. If major economies like the U.S. decide to raise interest rates, this could spell trouble for the South Korean won as investors pull out and invest in more profitable investment prospects. Now, Professor Ha explains in detail. Let's have a listen.
As the US froze its interest rates, the burden caused by the difference has been somewhat reduced. But even so, the gap is not small. So if this extends, there will be a lot of risks like capital outflow, with the US becoming more foreign investment friendly.
He also added that the interest rate gap would not last forever, which is why it is necessary to also watch for increased household debt ahead of the upcoming central bank meeting. As the U.S. has maintained its interest rate, there is a high chance that the Bank of Korea will also hold its rate. The Bank of Korea has kept its benchmark rate at 3.5% for nearly a year, so the gap between the two countries will remain in the 1.75 to 2 percentage point range. However, dealing with increased inflation and higher household business debt differs between the two countries. For example, in the U.S., monetary tightening policies are more effective as government bond rates can tame inflation.
South Korea this week also released some major economic figures, including exports and industrial production as well. Let's talk about those data.
Absolutely, considering especially both of those figures are an increase. Let's first go over industrial production for September. South Korea's overall industrial production, spending, and investments all rose in September as retail sales and chip production shows positive signs of recovery, driving industrial output and private spending.
Then did market optimism in the chip industry also trickle into figures for October exports? Would you say that? What was the trade balance for last month?
South Korea's exports in October saw an upward trend compared to the year before for the first time in 12 months. This is largely attributed to a strong performance in the auto sector as well as a recovery in the semiconductor industry. South Korea's trade minister noted that the recent trade balance in the black signified a sign of recovery in times of global uncertainty, including high interest rates and oil prices.
Right, it looks like South Korea's economic figures are pointing some good signs, but apart from that, we'll have to keep a close eye on the 30th when the central bank BOK will make its key rate decision.
Finance officials will be watching out.
All right, Sang-jin, thank you so much for the wrap-up today.
It's great to be here, Dami. Thank you.
This week, President Yoon Suk Yeol has sought support for the government's budget proposal for next year. He said the focus is on improving the country's fiscal soundness so that no burdensome debt passes on to future generations. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon has the details.
Fiscal soundness is the basis for the government's budget proposal for the year 2024, according to President Yoon Suk Yeol on Tuesday at the National Assembly as he addressed the parliament.
건전 재정은 단순히 지출을 줄이는 것만이 아니고 국민의 혈세를 낭비 없이 적재적소에 효율적으로 쓰는 것입니다. 건전 재정은 대내적으로는 물가 안정에, 대외적으로는 국가 신인도를 유지하는 데 매우 중요할 뿐 아니라 미래 세대에게 감당하기 어려운 빚을 넘겨주지 않기 위한 것입니다.
In fact, the whole budget, which stands at 657 trillion won or 487 billion US dollars, increased by 2.8% on year. That's the lowest increase since 2005. And Yoon explained the funds saved will be redirected to enhance the nation's core functions such as defense, rule of law, education, health, support for the vulnerable, and securing future growth engines. To be specific, 1.1 billion US dollars additionally allocated for basic living recipients with support for one-parent homes and multicultural children. He also took the opportunity to share his general agenda, saying all policies will prioritize stabilizing prices and improving people's livelihoods amid global uncertainties from conflicts in the Middle East and Ukraine. The word economy was mentioned 23 times in his 25-minute speech. The word reform also came up 14 times as he urged support for his 3 key reformation targets to the majority opposition floor, saying they're for the future of the country, including the critically low birth rate.
저출산이라는 어둠의 터널에서 빠져나오려면 미래 세대에게 희망을 주고 우리 사회의 지속 가능한 성장을 가능케 하는 경제 사회 전반의 구조 개혁이 필요합니다. 이러한 연금 개혁, 노동 개혁, 교육 개혁을 위해 의원님들의 깊은 관심과 지원을 부탁드리겠습니다.
Leading up to the speech, much attention was paid to Yoon's scheduled meeting with main opposition Democratic Party's dignitaries and Chairman Lee Jae-myung. A different scene compared to last year's budget speech when all 169 DP lawmakers boycotted it and no such meetings were held.
Since I became the Speaker of the National Assembly, I believe this is the first time that the President, chairpersons from both ruling and opposition parties, and the floor leaders, as well as leaders of all branches of the government, have gathered in one place. That's why it seems many media outlets and citizens are paying close attention to our meeting today.
Following the speech, Yoon also had a meeting and luncheon with committee chairs. There, he promised to reflect the words of lawmakers as he carries out policies. Kim Dami, 아리랑뉴스.
South Korean President Yoon Suk Yeol again addressed world leaders on the need for global cooperation on governing artificial intelligence. After 28 governments, including South Korea, the UK, the US, and China, earlier agreed to jointly address potentially catastrophic risks to the world. Our president's correspondent Oh Soo-young has the details.
President Yoon Suk Yeol has called for global standards on digital governance and a body that oversees it, warning that without principles, artificial intelligence could threaten freedom and democracy around the world. This came at the first AI Safety Summit held in southeast England, where Yoon virtually joined discussions with world leaders, researchers and tech executives to address the unknown and potentially destabilizing impact of AI across societies. Yoon said the emergence of generative AI such as ChatGPT has improved everyday convenience and industrial productivity, but has widened economic gaps and increased the proliferation of fake news that undermines freedom and electoral systems. The president stressed that digital technologies, including AI, should contribute to expanding human freedom and welfare and not threaten the safety of individuals and societies. He said this also means there should be equal opportunities to innovate with AI and reap its benefits. Here, Yoon noted that South Korea in September announced the Digital Bill of Rights based on 5 principles: freedom, fairness, safety, innovation, and solidarity. At the 2-day forum, some 28 governments, including South Korea, the UK, and the United States and China, penned the so-called Bletchley Declaration, the world's first joint document on ensuring AI is developed safely and responsibly. Recognizing that the technology could pose catastrophic risk to humanity, the document stressed the danger of AI systems, stirring further cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, and the development of biological weapons. The governments agreed to work together to identify shared concerns and build a scientific understanding of the risks in discussions going forward to design, develop, and use AI in ways that are human-centric, trustworthy, and responsible, with a pro-innovation and proportionate governance.
So we have agreed that Bletchley Park should be the first of a series of international safety summits, with both Korea and France agreeing to host further summits next year. The late Stephen Hawking once said, "AI is likely to be the best or worst thing to happen to humanity." If we can sustain the collaboration that we have fostered over these last 2 days, I profoundly believe that we can make it the best.
President Yoon pledged to carefully heed the opinions of each country and prepare for follow-up discussions next year. His office says South Korea and the UK have agreed to co-host a mini virtual summit in 6 months' time, ahead of the second AI Safety Summit this time next year. Oh Soo-young, 아리랑뉴스.
The World Health Organization has recognized South Korea's regulatory excellence by making it one of the first 3 countries named WHO-listed authorities. South Korea's Ministry of Food and Drug Safety, along with the Swiss Agency for Therapeutic Products and Singapore's Health Sciences Authority, were named as WLAs. They were given the label as they comply with all the indicators and requirements specified by the WHO. The Global Health Organization said the designation marks a milestone achievement for South Korea, Switzerland, and Singapore in earning global recognition and promoting their confidence. It also added that the WLA framework aims to recognize advanced regulatory authorities and promote access and supply of safe, effective, and quality medical products. The song 7 by BTS member Jungkook this week set a record on Spotify for the shortest time to surpass 1 billion streams. It took the song 108 days from its release to reach the milestone on Monday. This is 4 days shorter than the previous record set by American singer-songwriter Miley Cyrus with her song Flowers. Now, the song 7 debuted at number 1 on Spotify's Global Daily Top Songs chart back in July, making Jungkook the first K-pop solo artist to do so. This year's Halloween here in South Korea was quite a quiet one, as the country exactly a year ago observed a deadly crowd crush that killed 159 people in Itaewon. And with the end of the year just around the corner with many events and festivities scheduled, the South Korean government is staying on high alert more than ever. Our Shin Se-byuk reports.
Hongdae, one of the hottest and trendiest nightlife areas in Seoul, used to be filled with excitement and people with costumes for Halloween. And now, 1 year after the deadly Halloween crowd crush that took the lives of 159 people in Itaewon, things have changed. Halloween 2023 is much calmer and quieter than other previous years.
Before the tragic accident last year, my friends used to suggest going out to places like Itaewon or Hongdae for Halloween. But now the whole let's go out vibe has really died down. I'm not too keen on heading out either.
I see fewer people wearing Halloween costumes this year. It's also less hustle and bustle overall.
However, despite the solemn mood, the Halloween spirit was found in some places. Decorations like ghosts and pumpkins were scattered around, and there were some people wearing costumes. In fact, according to the Mapogu District Office, during the Halloween peak weekend, which fell from October 27th to 29th this year, approximately 260,000 people visited Hongdae over the 3 days from Friday to Sunday. It's a 50% increase in visitors compared to other usual weekends. To prevent accidents due to population density, the government and local authorities have made extra preparations. From October 27th through November 1st, the Seoul Metropolitan Government is keeping a close eye on 16 areas across 12 districts, including popular spots like Itaewon, Hongdae, and Gangnam. Seoul City and 25 local districts, together with safety-related agencies like the police and fire department, jointly monitor crowd density to ensure everyone's safety using AI-powered crowd management systems. Medical facilities as well as medics and ambulances were also on standby. Halloween is over, but the government is bracing for upcoming year-end festivities nationwide. With large-scale year-end events set to take place nationwide, the government has vowed to implement on-site crowd management systems at 100 locations across the country by the end of the year. Shin Se-byuk, 아리랑뉴스.
We thank you for watching Weekly News Highlights. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.